All
All
right.
your
Thank you. We've got a lot to cover today. So, as Callie indicated, what we're going to do is really do the presentation and then come back at the end and answer questions. I'm excited because we got a lot to talk about, which is good. That's a good place to be. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to give a bit of a technical overview, kind of on the state of the grid and our technology. Callie has some updates on events and other things that are going on, and then Wolf will wrap it up at the end with some discussion about his on grids efforts and where those stand. So, with regards to the software, as of last night, all of the software releases that we make from our NGC project will officially be named Tranquility. Um, that's something I talked about doing in the past. Basically, when I started doing development work with Inworlds, um, a big reason I got involved was because of Trank, Dave, and I considered him a mentor in regard to the virtual world space, and I have a lot of respect for his ability to embrace kind of leading edge technology and really look at making virtual worlds work efficiently and well. And we're going to try and emulate that. So it seemed natural to basically name the code that and the work that we're doing after him in kind of homage to his efforts in the past. He's not involved in the development work, just to be clear, but I have spoken to him, and because I did ask permission to use his namesake to label the release. So going forward, our software will be Tranquility, and I expect two releases before the end of the year. The first will be a maintenance release. It's going to be based on our current code base, the Mono. If you're aware of how this works, it's a Linux runtime. Um, it's kind of more backwards looking. Mono runtime. That's going to largely be a maintenance release. There's a couple of bug fixes and things that got done over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to pick those up. We're going to pick up the name change and a few other things, and that will make a release probably by the end of the month. I'll do some maintenance and we'll roll that out. Um, that's basically designed to have a stable release on the grid across the board because the next one, which is the bigger deal, is expected before the end of the year, and that's a feature release. There's a couple of things that are in here. It's based on the newer.NET runtime, which is good for a lot of reasons: security, performance, a lot of the things that, again, we're trying to really focus on in NGC, and I think we're doing right with our particular version of our fork of the OpenSim code. So um, there are a couple of features in particular that I would like to get into this release. One of those is link set data. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but I'm going to do my best to try and make sure that it does happen. Um, because we have some in-house developers and things that have been specifically asking for it. So I'd like to try and get the link set data into that release. I also want to support the export flag. I was looking at that a little bit last night. Uh, what the export flag is basically a mechanism that we can use to set um, a flag when on the objects that are on the grid, objects, scripts, textures, and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff, and say whether or not it's allowed to leave the grid or not. So, for instance, we can use that when someone's hypergridding as to whether or not they can take something off the grid. It will indicate whether something should go into an OR file uh, if backup, externalized backup is being made, things like that. So it gives us a little bit more control over the content and allows us to behave when we want to, like a closed grid, without having to actually be closed. So um, we don't. I'm not necessarily. My goal is not necessarily to get to a quote closed grid. It's to get to the trusted grid, which is a smaller kind of group of grids that are operating together under a common set of principles. But this is, I think, part of that effort. And then finally, the last feature that's I'm expecting in this release is PBR materials. If you've been following Second Life developments, there's been a bunch of activities around physically based rendering materials for most of the year. They actually have a release candidate on Second Life right now. Um, Ubit and Core did an initial implementation of PBR. It's actually mostly implemented by the client, so there's not a ton of extra work to do on our side. Although there's, I'm doing some work to clean up a few things. There's some message handling. It's possible to kind of really spam the server and spam the clients badly if you do certain things like texture flipping. So there's some work being done to kind of clean that up a little bit and make it more reliable and not so problematic. But anyway, our goal is to have physically based rendering working on the grid in this release that will be out by the end of the year. I'm actually planning on, as early as I possibly can, putting a copy on the grid on two regions, one on our GT region, because our intention is to use PBR heavily in the next major show that we do. And then also one of the two sandbox regions will get the PBR support. This is before a release at the end of the year. So people can start to experiment with it and try some things out. If you actually had your hands on a PBR capable viewer, and they do exist for OpenSim, um, you would find that some of it already works on the grid now. There is some support for it, um, but it's not fully complete. So the version that I'm talking about releasing by the end of the year is feature complete, at least with regard to the main features that it comes with. And I'm gonna so that's let me wrap this part up. That's the main thing that I'm looking at in terms of overall features for the grid itself. The other thing I wanted to point out is that Firestorm made a release for OpenSim 6.6.14, and you if you're not running that release of the viewer on the grid now, you really should. The last major release was 6.6.8, and there were a number of fairly serious bugs in that code base that relate to profiles and groups and so on. And those are all at least addressed to some degree, mostly fixed in this new release. There's also some texture loading fixes and a number of other things. So um, it, if you're running Firestorm, and you probably should be because that's the main viewer that we support, since we have the assistance of one of the Firestorm developers in NGC, you should be running 6.6.14. So I would highly recommend getting that and downloading it. And I also have a commitment from the Firestorm viewer that I mentioned to help us with this end of year release with PBR that basically um, she'll make test viewers available to the residents who want to run a PBR based viewer and test against this code. Um, you can get that stuff now. If we end up putting it into a GT show, it we would actually have to have a way for people to get it to see the show, which is another whole thing. And I'm hoping that all this will get released before the end of the year, and then there will be a released version of the viewer that supports it. There are some things about it that are pretty big, and so I'm going to segue into a discussion about PBR and what it is, since many of you may not be aware. Uh, PBR is stands for physically based rendering, and it's a mechanism for representing materials that is a bit more uh, uh, rich and detailed than the current mechanism that we have, which is normal specular, what's called a Blenfong material. You don't need to remember that. There won't be a test, I promise. Um, Although it does show up in the viewer, I'm not sure that that was a wise thing for the SL team to do, but that's what they did. Um, so in the viewer that's upcoming, you can either use traditional diffuse normal specular maps and use your materials that way, or you can use PBR materials, which is this physically based rendering mechanism. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We're the very first class, and we're going to talk about what user is in a little while. But the very first class that we will do under that auspice is kind of an overview of PBR that gives you a lot more detail. So we'll talk about what the different maps that are in a PBR material are and how those get put together and the settings work. But basically, it lets you do things that more closely match physical reality. So you can come up with textures with materials that mimic real life a lot in a lot more closer detail. That also includes, by the way, things like reflection. And so, for instance, under with PBR materials, it's possible to do something like a mirror that uh, reflects the person that's interacting. Uh, I won't say Callie actually got a copy of the
I
PBR
posted
viewer.
it.
Yeah, she tested it, and
I posted the picture for everybody to see
where'd you put it?
in our chat right here.
Oh,
State of the great stage.
okay. Yeah,
There's a lot of people in the audience that would appreciate a solid test like that.
she was testing, actively testing the PBR stuff, so we know that reflections work. I didn't even realize there was a chat in here. That's funny. Um,
Oh, Mikey Mike spankings will ensue.
oh, I'm watching the coffee house. Now you got me all distracted. Anyway, back to PBR. um, there is, as I said, a test release that's going to be available as soon as possible, and the end of year release will include the code. If it isn't fully released from Second Life, we may continue to update things based on changes that are made uh, in the viewer to support all of the capabilities. But the goal is that that stuff will be kind of coming, and we're going to do some things to help show you how to take advantage of it, because I'm kind of excited. I think it's a whole new level of detail, and the what you can do with shaders and things like that and lighting is pretty cool. So um, look for more details on that in the future. All right, next topic, the website. Um, I know I kind of said I was going to have this released. Peanut butter and raisin. I know I said they're going to have this released earlier. To be honest, I have a day job and I do stuff around here as well, and it's largely been an issue of having to prioritize. So I've tried to prioritize features for residents, specifically things like the link set stuff and this PBR release and so on. Um, so uh, the website that does exist, it actually has been um, getting some attention, but not to the point where it's 100% there. What I'm in, I talked last time about a beta test grid, and that grid does exist. It's actually where I've been testing all the changes I've been making. What I expect is about the time that I put a release up on of the region code up on the sandbox and on our GT region, I will turn on the website for uh, the beta test grid. And about the time we roll out the main release that I talked about for the end of the year is at the time that we will deploy the website to the main grid as well. In terms of what works, the we have starter avatars. There is a region page that lets you list all the regions that you own and do some basic management. I'm going to build on that over in the future. There's an event scheduling interface that's partially implemented. I need to do some more work on that. Um, there is a purchasing Skybooks site or page that currently points to the PayPal sandbox. And I've got some more testing and quite a bit of testing to do on that, primarily because we're taking real money and I want to make sure that all the workflows work and that we credit, um, uh, Skybooks purchases correctly and handle all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to come back to that. And there's something I wanted to say about Skybooks because we've had some people using them for paying for tier, which is perfectly okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about what's involved in that. But anyway, the website does exist and it's still going to get deployed initially on the test grid and then on the end of year with this other release. I would like to put it on the main grid and it will become our website going forward. All right. The test grid we just talked about. So lastly, or to not lastly, one more topic after that, I've got um, an upgrade planned. So the grid server that we're running right now is the same server that I put into service when we started the grid. It's about 5 years old. It's actually gotten some upgrades, storage upgrades and things over time. Um, so it's not entirely the same as it was, but it's still 5 years old. And I've been kind of budgeting. So as I said, we don't make a lot of money on this on our grid efforts. What we do is we pay our expenses with the tier that you all pay, and I'm very grateful that you're all here and paying tier, and that because it enables us to do this. For a long time, I kind of ate some of the cost of the grid, but right now I can say with that we are covering our expenses and a little bit extra, and that little bit extra is what I'm using for maintenance upgrades and things like that. So my intention after these releases are complete is to upgrade the grid server. Um, it should be largely seamless. There will be a short period of downtime when I switch the database and an asset database from one server to the other. Uh, and when that all happens, I'll talk about it. I don't expect a ton of downtime when that happens, but when we're done, we'll end up with a lot more storage space for assets on faster storage and a nice shiny new server. So hopefully that'll take us into the future. I'm also going to try and set up uh, some replication and uh, with the database so that that thing is a bit more fault tolerant. Trying to get to more and more to a point where things are pretty much zero downtime, irregardless of what happens. So I'll give you more information about the grid server update as we get closer to that, but it would be after the first of the year. Uh, and like I said, there will be a short period of downtime, but when we're back, we'll be on a shiny new server. Um, Lastly, for my last topic is around the trusted grid. Uh, this is a it's actually been an interesting last couple of weeks and months have been interesting. There is a Discord server for the NGC efforts, which is where we do our code. And that Discord is also used for discussions around the trusted grid. And I can honestly say that the bulk of the discussions in that server have been focused on the trusted grid concepts, specifically on respecting intellectual property and things like that. We've talked about that since our inception, and Um, like to say, and I really believe this is true, we have a zero tolerance policy for the most part with regard to um, copyrighted content. Uh, it doesn't mean that you won't ever see somebody on the grid. Doing events and stuff, it's difficult to police some of that stuff in real time. There are some things that we want to do with regard to the project that will make kind of policing inbound content and that kind of thing easier to do. Right now, the main tools that we have are pretty coarse grained, like banning whole grids and things like that. And I'm going to give you a list in just a second of the grids that don't have a way of ban coming into the USG grid. By the way, we don't limit going out anywhere, but we ask that you be aware where where you're going and and really be careful because if you're going to some of the places that we don't allow coming in, you probably should know that almost everything you're going to see is suspect and should be taken with a grain of salt. So, but our goal, like I said, with the effort is to develop more tools to continue to engage creators because it's there our IP that we're trying to protect as well as protecting our users. We don't want somebody to spend money on an object that they think is legitimate and end up having it get taken away from them. Um, so like I said, the trusted grid discussions sometimes it gets to be a hot topic, and some of the discussions get fairly heated. I actually, I've thought about that in the past. Anybody can join the server. There's a general discussion group. Um, and there are people in there that don't necessarily agree with our stance and they say that I've thought in the past about booting them out of the server, but I don't know that that's a good idea. I actually think that there is some benefit to having alternate points of view presented. At very least it helps you know the mindset of the rest of the hypergrid universe, so that's what we're working you know, to try and deal with. We leave it alone. And sometimes the conversations get a little bit heated. Would warn you that if you're there and you're coming in from the perspective of a content creator, be aware of that our stance is not really debatable. It's we are going to do what we can to support intellectual property rights of creators and our users using those products every step of the way. And the more we can bring tools to bear and really help to do that, the better it is as far as I'm concerned. The discussions at least are good for making sure that we know uh, I don't want to say enemy because I don't want to make it black and white like that, but we know the landscape that we're dealing with, and that's helpful. So, but we're gonna do our best to protect the people that are creating content, and the people that are using it. Um, there is Callie posted the list of grids that are banned. It's good to be aware of that list. Um, if you like I said, if you're going to those places, just know that what you're doing, what you're looking at on those grids is almost all botted content and suspect. It's a little disappointing to me, but some of the grids that are banned also are full of friends that we had in Inworlds, and I feel bad about that. It would be nice to not ban people that I consider a friend, but I can. Right now, we don't have another better way to do that. And some of those people are making choices that make it difficult for us to support their entry into here. So, um, but there's also people in the trusted grid effort that do believe and think the same way that we do, and those are people that we want to support. So, Discovery Grid is an example. Uh, Mobius Grid, uh, Constanza has tag, which is a closed grid. I haven't had this discussion with her yet, but I'm hoping maybe if the trusted grid thing is mature enough, she would consider opening her grid up to that and not the hypergrid in general. But anyway, these are all cases where uh, those are the issues that the trusted grid effort is trying to focus on. And I know I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. It's a difficult topic sometimes because it does involve people, and sometimes people we care about. Uh, so, but so we do what we can right now. The tools, like I said, are a bit coarse, um, and uh, we're hoping to fix that over time and make it better. Um, I mentioned the user thing. Callie's going to talk about it in detail. The We're going to do the PBR class, but the other one that I'd like to do is a kind of a tutorial or class on the trusted grid, and basically in that case we'll go into a lot more detail about what grids are involved. How can you tell if something's botted? There are some things you can do both from the perspective of looking at where the content came from, but also just little common sense things like take the name of the object. In most cases, people aren't hiding anything. They're trying to advertise that they took something from SL, say, or from a US, from a OpenSim grid. So they'll use the same name for the object and even the same pictures. So doing a marketplace search or a text or an image search using the image for the object can sometimes tell you pretty quickly that, hey, this came from someplace and it probably isn't legit. So we're going to have a class and go into some details on some of that kind of stuff as well. Boy, I've talked about a lot of stuff. I think I've covered everything I want to cover, and I know if there are things that I didn't address that you were expecting to hear, either put it in a question or follow up with me after, and I'll do my best to get answers for you. Um, but just to sum up, the main thing is two releases before the end of the year: a quick maintenance release, and then the bigger feature release. Both releases will be called Tranquility, and we'll be running Tranquility going forward. That's the name of our software. It is compatible with OpenSim, but it is a fork. We're definitely going in our own direction with some features. So, and I hope what we'll end up with uh, is something more reliable and more performant for everybody. Talked about the trusted grid, the website, the test grid, and the fact that after the first of the year, we're going to do a grid server upgrade. So I think that's everything. Oh, if you want to join the NGC Discord, we can share a link for that as well. Um, like I said, just be aware that it's a bit of a free for all in some cases, and the general discussion. There's also a separate area that is developer focused. If you have a development background and you want to participate in that, I can add you to that as well. Just let me know when you join the server that that's something you're interested in. But the general discussion is something that everybody could benefit from. Um, all right. Let's, like I said, like Callie said initially, let's save questions to the end. That's a good one, and I actually would like to address it. So, but let's save it to the end as much as we can. And I'm going to turn things over to Callie because I think she's got some things she wants to talk about um, that relate to events and other things that we got going on here. It's a lot going on.
Thanks. Um, First thing I want to talk about, I alluded to a promotion coming up a little bit ago, and I apologize. I'm kind of getting over a bit of a cold. Give me one second. Don't want to hack in your ear. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about quickly is what I think is a fairly easy topic, and it's designed to be one that will help you guys, but it will also help new users as well. We're running a promotion for Welcome. As you know, we've converted the stores on Welcome or the buildings on Welcome to freebie stores. And we have a board right where you land on Welcome that any user can click and be teleported directly to the door frame of whatever, building they were interested in. And we have everything from men's and women's clothing to furry avatars and house objects and games and vehicles and all things like that. Anybody that is a member of the USG Merchants Group, it is a group that you have to ask me to join. It's not join, on your own. Um, can place objects on Welcome. With that being said, the promotion that we're running for this coming month is that we will give you 200 Skybucks per item that you put on the Welcome region, up to a maximum of 10. You can put more than 10, but we're only going to give you a maximum of 200 Skybucks for 10 total items paid out at the end of the month. So for a potential of 2,000 Skybucks. And the reason we're doing that is because this, you can use Skybucks to pay for tier grid services like or requests and things like that. Um, and it's a means to let us try and help you. Um, we know times are tight for everybody, so we can't discount our prices because our prices are fairly low for the services we provide. But we can supply initiative, incentive, things like that. And so that's why we want to do this. What you need to do is put together a list of the things that you've put on Welcome, and you'll need to send it to me in Discord. That's very important. You need to give it to me in Discord. And I would do it when you're done. So if you have 2 items and that's all you're going to put, that's fine. Send me your list when you're done. If you're going to put 10 over the course of 3 weeks, that's fine. Wait until you've done all 10 and send me your list when it's completed. And then I will go ahead and send the payouts at the end of the month. They will come from me as opposed to the banker. The banker is the one that pays you when you purchase Skybucks. I'm going to be the one paying you for this promo incentive that I've created. Um, and one of the with respect to everything that Mike just talked about, big proponents of this is that you must ensure that either you've created the object via, original mesh or a template, or that you have the right to put these things on Welcome. I don't believe they have to be full perm to be on Welcome, but they do have to be set to the group USG Welcome in order to be placed there. You can only res with that tag. If you put things out on Welcome, and when I come through and verify them, I find that any of them are botted, they will be auto-returned to you without notice. And I will mark it on the list that it's not paid out. We're not going to pay out for that. Um, what else? Should we use for that? Oh, listed in Discord to me. Oh, and in what category? So if you have, 10 things, one in each separate category, please let me know that because I literally am going to have to go around and verify these things. It'll just make it just a little tiny bit easier for me. I'm hoping we get a lot of participation with this. And if that's the case, I don't want to spend a week going through this. So let's try and make it easy for everybody and we'll get you some cash. The promotion ends November 30th. I'll need your list by November 26th. So if you have put some things on Welcome prior to the announcement of this promotion, I've been through Welcome. We don't have a whole lot of stuff. So in light of that, I'm going to go ahead and say that if you have put things on Welcome, you want to make sure that you include them in your list. Okay, now if you've already put 10 things out on Welcome, this is an on your honor thing. Let's put out a couple of new things. The goal of this is not just to give you money, it's also so that we can provide new stuff for our residents as they come in. But remember, Welcome is open to Hypergrid. So you have to ensure that you have the ability to put those things out on Welcome And I wouldn't put anything out on welcome if you are afraid that it will get botted. We can't control when a hypergrid user comes in. You know what I mean? So just be careful. Now I'm going to tell you there are some really good things in our Clutterfly region. We have both the Avatar store and the Linda Kelly, um, was it the Mesh store? I think it is. And if you're a texture creator and you want to make your own textures on something, there's some really good free mesh templates you can use. So, that's a good suggestion for anybody wanting to try to put something out on welcome. And that's all I've got for the promotion. So if you have a question around that promotion, please make sure you write it down, okay? Because we're not going to answer questions just yet. I'm going to move on to the user group. So I don't even know, I think it was about 6 months ago now, we started a program called Utopia Skye Educational Resource, which is how we got the name user. And we were going to build a region. I was working with some SL um, educational places like Happy Hippo and Builders Brewery. I was going to try and work with them, and we were going to try and do some kind of satellite things. And then things got busy, and that just kind of didn't pan out because of various things. So it was kind of put on hold. But I do think that we have enough content and enough creators here that have got wonderful talents in various areas that we can start this on our own and kind of build in a blending of whatever we might add from anywhere else. And so, with that in mind, we've kind of resurrected the user group, and we have a build that's currently visible on Welcome if you want to take a look at it. It's a small build. It's going to be where our first 3 classes take place. We do have an entire region called the user region, and that's where eventually all of our classes and endeavors will take place. But until that build gets replaced, it's an OR file that we've got allowance to use, but we don't want to use that. So until that gets replaced and something else gets built in its place, we're going to use the building on Welcome and have our first classes there. So the first class is going to be on PBR. And it's going to be much more in depth than what we've kind of covered today. Today was just a high level overview. This actual class will be more about what it is, how to use it, the drop wells you're going to expect to see, what's going to change because of PBR, and all the wonderful things you can do with it. So I would strongly encourage creators and users to be there because it will change a lot of the way you build outfits, a lot of the way, like the theater group, the GT theater is going to do our sets and numbers and things. And there'll be a lot of good quality information you'll get from that. So that class date is currently TBD, but it will be held on Welcome and it will probably be within the next month, um, maybe even sooner. So we do have a user calendar on the website. So if you go to utopiasky.com, at the very top on the right side, there's a link to Utopia Sky calendars. And if you click that, there's currently 2 calendars there. There's the official calendar, and if you scroll down, there's the user calendar. Now, the user calendar is currently blank because we don't have the class date scheduled yet, but we will have that on the board. We're also looking at a means to import those events from the official grid calendar and the user calendar into Discord as events. I'm currently in the process of finalizing that kind of a thing. And then we're going to work with some technical stuff in the background so that in the future, when the website is done and you put in your events via the website, those will also be pulled into Discord. So we have coverage in both of the 2 places we use the most, in the grid and in Discord. And people can say they're interested or not. So that's future stuff. The second class that we'll be running is on the trusted grid. What does that mean? What does it mean for you specifically? Identifying botted content. Things along those lines will be held in that second class. Again, that one, the schedule date is to be TBD, but it will also be held on Welcome, and that will be in the next month. So I would look for that in the coming week or two. And then the third class that is slated to be done there is lighting. And advanced lighting, do's and don'ts for the best ambiance in builds and scenes. That will probably be in December. That will be hosted by me. and but I want that to come after um, the first two classes. And then the fourth and fifth class will also be done in Welcome, but will be in conjunction with the Discord stage channels. So a stage channel will be created for the user group specifically, and those classes will be held in there, and it will be about Discord. So Discord Beginner Basics will be one class, and then Discord Advanced Levels, Roles, Permissions, Onboarding, and Communities. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up with the user groups. So there's a couple of notes about the user group. You must join the user group, obviously, to be notified of events. Event notices will go out in those groups, and they'll be posted in Discord. They'll also be posted on the USG user calendar. To join that group, you can either ask me for an invite or Mike, or you can look at my profile and tick the profile and join. It is open join, but the default role is a student role. If you have any interest in doing some classes, then you would need an educator role and you have to talk to me to get that. I know there was some talk about mesh body classes. I think at one point Tanya had mentioned something along those lines, maybe. I don't know if there's still interest there, or if anybody else wants to take up that mantle. And some other classes too, along lines of holistic mental health and wellness and things like that, which I think would be perfect additions to user group. This group is designed to be not just grid specific. It's supposed to really enhance the community of people that we are and embrace our diversity, our challenges, and our specialties as well. So we want to make sure we cover a broad scope of topics that will interest multiple people. And these don't have to just be classes. These can also be support groups that are created that meet up for certain things. A grief support group might be a good example of one. So, really the sky is the limit here, no pun intended. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. So feel free to post them. I'll actually open up the user section in Discord today, and we'll let you, put a suggestions in a thread there, a post there. But the other thing to note about the user groups is you must understand at a minimum and preferably be able to use forums in Discord. I have been hammering over and over, anybody that posts in the forum, here's a link. Do you know we have forums? Click here. And I get very little response to that. Even if you guys see it, I don't get much response. So I am wondering if you guys see them, are aware of them, don't think they're necessary, or don't even pay attention to them. But I am telling you, if you're going to be part of the user group, you have to use them because that's where class studies will be put and things of that nature. I think that's it for the user group. The next two topics I have are short. We have a Halloween party coming up October 29th. It's actually going to replace the GT Club event, so it'll be at 11 a.m. grid time. It'll be on Welcome, just like it was last year. And come in your best, Halloween attire. We're going to have Mike and Wolf doing a 2-hour set of music that is sure to be both different, eclectic, and enjoyable. And I'll, of course, bring the dances and make everybody do funny animations and things. And we might actually have a contest. You just never know. So you're just going to have to show up. It'll be fun stuff. That'll be the 29th of October. So that's going to be a Sunday. So mark it down. And I'll put an event in there too so you guys can see it. And look for the poster for that. That graphic is coming up soon. And then somebody has mentioned there was a couple of people that were interested in another art fair. We haven't done an art fair for a little bit. I know Tanya's Summer Fest had art in it as well. But we actually had many years ago 2 art fairs. We had an erotic one, which was adult themed, and then we had a general art fair. But there was interest expressed to do one again. We actually do have a region specifically for this purpose. It's called the Skye Art Space region, and it's currently set up so that people have booths, or little builds. They look like the builds on the Creators Guild, where you can display some of your artwork, and then we have like an art crawl, I guess, between them. If there is really interest in this, Um, we could do it on that region, but that region is not open to hypergrid. So that may be a good thing. That may be a bad thing. I don't know. We need to kind of talk about that and flesh that out. I also wanted to see if anyone was interested in organizing an art fair, and if so, if there was another location that you had in mind for that. But I'd love to kind of, see something like that get off the ground. I'll be happy to provide music and some of my own artwork if there's space for that. But just let me know. Get in touch with me in Discord, post in USG Welcome. Let me know there. Let's do something. Let's get together and kind of share what we all love. Um, so that's that for the USG Art Fair. Oh, upcoming grid things. So I'm currently working on a means to get communication. So, like when we have our state of the grid, we all kind of gather and welcome. And at this minute, it's really just a nice place to sit and stare at each other's avatars. But I'm working on getting it so that what we say here gets streamed into welcome. And what somebody on welcome might say gets streamed into the Discord channel as well. I've seen that working in other servers and it works perfectly. But we don't have anybody that's doing that kind of setup for OpenSim yet. So I'm currently looking into that and trying to push us into that way. I think that might make more sense and have more practical applications than just the example I gave you. But I think there's a lot of use case for it. So it's a project I'm working on. The other thing I'm doing is I'm working on that with events. So currently I'm working with a bot that will actually create events. It pulls it from the calendar. So if I put something in the official grid calendar, it'll pull it in and it'll show up in Discord as an event, just like the state of the grids do. And you can click on that and say you're interested or not. You don't have to. And then it will come up as a reminder when it gets close to the event for you. Mike is also working on an API that will do that from the new website when it's finished. So anything you put in the website will populate on the calendar, and then the bot will take that information and put it in as an event in Discord. So there'll be a lot more visibility for your events beyond just the grid. And since Discord is our primary method of communication, it makes sense to utilize the benefits of having it, which is also why we want to make sure we keep having Discord classes because people aren't familiar with it or where to look for what and things like that. And a nice forum for you to ask your questions like, I don't see this. What should I expect to see? So those are things that are projects that I'm working on that rely on other people to work with it as well. Last thing I'm going to say about grid needs. If you are a builder and you're looking for a project, we are looking for builders to help out with our user region. We have a couple of other projects, including a paid project on the grid. If you have build experience and you want to make some USD, you want to get in touch with me. I'll tell you about that as people message me one-on-one. But the user builds are must be unique to USG. They cannot exist anywhere else permanently, and they must be created or legitimately purchased, but preferably created because we want to have something that's unique for us. We have some tools and things we're going to bring in, so there we are working on that too. But as far as like the classroom areas and places you can meet, we're looking for things where we can parcel off places so there's individual spaces for voice communications and things like that. There's more on that if you're interested. As always, you can reach me on Discord. I'm pretty much on 24/7. So, I mean, even if I'm on D&D, I'll always come back and make sure I reply to a message. So, make sure you get in touch with me. The other thing that we need on the grid are cheerleaders. I'll say at every meeting, word of mouth is the best method of advertising possible. I'm going to tell you something. We actually paid for Facebook advertising. I thought, we had just a little bit of extra money in the coffer. I thought, well, let me throw out some advertising. Let's see if that, if that does anything for us. And I paid, I mean, I didn't throw, the bank at it, of course. But I did pay a little bit of money to see what we could do. And my stats, you get these stats, were that the outreach hit one man in Indiana, one man in Indiana over the span of a month and a half of advertising. Yeah. So when I say word of mouth is the best advertising, I am not kidding. And we can use it, guys. We're working hard to make sure you guys have a stable place full of people that are warmly welcoming you and full of, people. Yeah, we're owners, but we're people too. You know what I mean? And we care about you and your dreams and what you want to do, whatever that may be. Even if it's just having a place to land so you can buy pretty things, that's still legitimate. So, yeah, we could use your help. And then be engaged. I think Mike said the same thing. Create things, make things, break what you create. Don't break the grid, but break prims, torture the prims, buy some templates, do, no, they didn't, Lola. Do things, build your dreams. It's your world. We're just here to provide the resources. So those are the grid needs. And I think I am probably approaching the point of rambling. So I think I'm going to close my section of today's agenda and open the floor to the third section of today's agenda, which, oh, I am forgetting something. See, this is when you get scatterbrain. New Year's Eve, we are going to have fireworks. Um, Gosh, I'm telling you, I'm on the spot right now, and all of the information is totally gone from my brain. But we are going to have fireworks. We're going to have it in the European time zone. So I will make sure that information gets posted about that. Let's have that be the time that we all get together and celebrate another fantastic year. I don't know. There's this other fireworks person, we might get. But yeah, it's Nene. Yep. Oh, here we go. I'm going to post this right here in the text channel so you all can see it. And then I would look for another graphic event. You know how we post in the events channel here. I would look for that to come as well. But there's the information so that you can write it down. All right, I think that's going to do it for me. If I remember something I've missed, I'll post it in Discord. My last plea to you is, again, don't mute the server. If there's a particularly chatty channel in Discord, you can just right-click the channel and mute it, because there's just so much information we use in Discord to get to you. If you've muted the server, you miss out on a lot, and we can't control that. So, all right, last but certainly not least, upcoming things with respect to on-grids, marketplace, and whatever Wolfie wants to bring to the table. So Wolf, I'm going to bring you up to the stage, and then I'm going to mute, and the floor will be all yours. So let me put you up there. All right, folks, I'm going to mute now, and here's Wolfie.
Hey guys, I promise to keep my stuff as short as I possibly can. That's a lot of stuff. On grids, as a lot of you will know, I've been working on a marketplace for the grid. I'm also working on networked vendors that link to that marketplace. So you set the products up in one place, you can run them on vendors in world as well as on the marketplace. There's a bunch of other stuff, rent boxes and a lot of business service stuff. What I'm trying to do is build a suite of tools that run alongside the grid, particularly for those who create things to sell merchants, but also for other creators and service providers, so that there's something to sort of augment the grid. That's how I'm thinking of it. There's a lot of stuff that's much easier to do on a website or through a network than you can do just very simply on the grid. So that's what I've been working on. The first step of that will be the marketplace and the vendors, which I am aiming to have released, and it's on target for mid-November, so about a month from now. The biggest issue around that, and one of the reasons it's been delayed, is payment, is currency. There's been a lot of concerns from merchants and creators as to how they get money out of the grid for things that they sell or services they provide in the grid. And I've been talking to Mike and Kelly about that since I came to the grid. What can we do about it? Skybucks are great for, for paying for regions and things, but for very clear reasons to do with tax and all sorts of financial complications. Running a virtual currency that you can cash out gets the attention, particularly at the moment, of taxmen all around the world, and there's all kinds of implications to that. So we've been talking about trying to find a way to sell Skybucks and all sorts of things like that. But in the process of developing the marketplace, what I've come up with is a different solution. Because the marketplace and the vendors and the other tools, rent boxes, all that sort of thing, that I'm creating run on their own network. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be providing something that isn't quite a third currency. I'm calling them, they'll be OGZ for on-grids, but Tanya and I have been talking about them, and they've just come up to be a friendly name of Oggies. Which may or may not stick. But the idea is that the customers, the end users of these products and services, they're not generally bothered about cashing out. So they'll be able to buy these Oggies using, credit cards or PayPal, the usual sort of stuff. And they'll be able to buy these products. The merchants and providers of those services will effectively be selling those services to me, for me, my business, my marketplace, to then sell on to the end users. There is no direct link because I can vary the price. I'll never overprice something. I'll never make something more expensive than the merchant will be happy with, but I might choose to discount it. I don't think I'll do that very often, but the fact that I can do that means that conversion is not a fixed exchange rate, which means it's not a virtual currency. You're not taking the Oggies and cashing them out. You can't do that. Much like Skybucks, you buy Oggies, you can use them on my marketplace, you can use them in services in World. But the merchants will be paid directly in US dollars by me, as they have provided those services that I'm effectively selling on. Now, the merchants and whatever will actually be using the vendors, putting them in their own stores, setting them up. I'll come back to the questions in a second, guys. But because it's not a direct link, because the merchants are being paid directly in US dollars by me, it isn't a virtual currency. I've checked this with some tax officials to make sure that it isn't. What I'm effectively doing, the closest relationship to it, is that the end users are buying or charging a gift card. In effect, they can't get their money back on it. It's a one-way transaction, and they're then using that to buy things through the marketplace and through the vendors. I then pay the merchants on sort of 30 to 60-day terms for providing those services that are sold through their vendors on my network. So what that means is that this is a way of giving the merchants and providers what they really need, a quick and easy way to cash out for what they're providing, but that we've got an easy way for customers to pay for those services. Now, I'm not in the business of trying to run a monopoly on this. The marketplace will only run on Oggies, but it will also have the ability, if the merchants have got vendors selling those items in world, the other opportunity you'll have on the marketplace is to teleport to a vendor that is up and running that you can actually buy from. And the vendors will, if the merchant chooses to, will also have the option to buy it through whatever currency is running on that region. So they'll still work like regular vendors. But they'll have the option for somebody, if they've got Oggies balance for the marketplace, then they'll be able to spend them in World as well. So that's a simplified overview of it. But you won't be able to use the Augie's balance for anything else in the grid. It won't be the way that you can buy Skybucks or Globit to do that. Now we've had some concerns about Globit. The customer service has been unresponsive, and I don't really feel that I can trust it. When I first set out to do this, I was doing it with Globit and Skybucks, but I've had less confidence in that, and I've had a lot of merchants telling me that what they want is a simple way to cash out. I had merchants saying to myself and to Tanya that they would come over from Second Life, but they haven't got an easy way to just be certain that they can cash out the stuff that's being sold. So we've been looking at this possibility of how can we get around that and give them a sense of trust in it. So that's the important part of this that I wanted to sort of get out there, and so I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions about that. So yeah, just to answer the one that's up there from Seb, you won't be able to use Skybox on the marketplace. No. There's all sorts of security concerns with actually putting Skybox balance and Globit's balance onto my marketplace, and I fell foul of that with in Worlds. I created and ran the marketplace over on InWorlds, and when the grid went down, I had all sorts of people pursuing me for their currency back that I had in the marketplace, and I couldn't get money back for his any more than anybody else could, and I'm not willing to do that again. It's not that I don't trust this grid, it's that if we're going to do a marketplace, I mean, if you don't want to use it as a marketplace, consider it a directory. You'll be able to find stuff, you'll be able to click a link on the listing and go and buy it from a vendor in World with regional currency, but the marketplace is going to stick with this new currency. Okay, that is as short as I want to keep it at the moment. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but this isn't the right forum for it. Yes. Yeah, to answer Seb's other question in here, yeah, it's an independent project, but with the basis that it will be exclusive to USG, at least for a while. I may consider taking it to other grids, to some of the trusted grids, if they're interested in having it. Depends on whether they want a marketplace. But for now, it's just USG. Okay, that's it for me. So, awesome. Callie, if you want to open the floor, I'll be quiet.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Raise your hand, please, and we'll answer them in the order received. I think I answered that one with a yes and no. I would be careful of what comes from DigiWorlds. Terry allows Athena to be used there, which of course is botted. Some of the dinky stuff, as I understand, is botted. There may be others, and Mike, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is, yeah, so that's a good question all by itself. Athena is a botted copy of the Maitreya body from SL. So, and it's all over. I can't hear me.
Athena is a botted copy of the Maitreya body from SL. That's what Mike was saying.
Yeah, it's so in that particular case, and in the case of all the clothing and things that go along with it, they're allowing that kind of stuff there. So I don't think they're being as rigorous as we would like to see, obviously, with the trusted grid in mind. So in that sense, it's not entirely safe. He's better than some, but there are other things that that they do in DigiWorlds. For instance, he'll strip scripts that leave the grid from merchants, and that's kind of a problem as well. If you're going to do commerce and allow people to come in and buy products, you can't have that happen because essentially you're breaking anything that's leaving. So I think in general I would be careful with DigiWorlds. That's how I'll say it.
Yeah, to answer Judy's question, I think I did, but I'll answer it again in case somebody else that just arrived may have it. If you have stuff that you have put on welcome, that you want to include in the promotion, just add it to the list of items that you're going to put out. If you've already put 10 items on welcome, I'm pretty sure nobody has, but if you already have, I would ask that you please put a couple more out, just to be a little fair. Yeah, so Ellen, those things would be eligible. Just make sure you add them to whatever list you give me. But the goal isn't just, to add what you've already got. The goal is to add more content as well. So, I would ask that you, add a couple more items if you can. So we've got stuff for our new residents.
Thank you, Judy, for the stuff you have put in, though.
Yeah.
And you should turn those in because
Yes. I appreciate, people saying that they're not after the promotion. And, I understand where your heart is in that. And that alone, that gives me all nice, warm and fuzzies and stuff. But we're offering the promotion as a way to give those warm fuzzies back to you, to our residents. So, you know, that's something we really want to do. So please do give me that list of 2 items and take that money and buy something from another creator, something like that.
so there. Callie did mention this. As of now, the welcome region is set up such that it's hypergrid accessible. I'm hoping, like I said, that by the end of the year that we have a functional export flag, in which case you could theoretically put things in the stores and mark them as not for export, in which case they would only go to local residents. But we'll talk more about that if and when that all gets into place in time.
Etheria, if you click the little hand icon in the lower middle part of your Discord, you'll be popped into the question queue. And if you don't wish to speak, like on voice, just type your question in the text channel. If you wish to speak, just accept the invite to the stage and you can speak.
We need to fix that. It actually is called Utopia Skye Welcome because it's in the hypergrid. There are so many welcome regions that show up in Open Sim World that we tried to name it Utopia Skye Welcome so it was clear which one it was. But yeah, let's see if we can get you over here if you're on. And Etheria, we'll work. We should. You just need to get the link at very least because you can come to the Halloween party. So
Yeah, there's
we'll
a
get you the
folder
link.
on welcome and I can pass it to you, Etheria, that includes a landmark to welcome. I will go ahead and send that out now. Those folders, there's a box right on the welcome landing point. Those landmarks are the official grid regions and they're updated regularly. So let me send you that folder really quick.
Yeah, the hop that Sub just pasted will work too. That'll get you
Yes.
from.
Yep. There you go.
Hopefully that's what it was. The confusion is it's not just call welcome; it's Utopia
Yeah.
Skye Welcome. So
Yeah.
yeah, that actually is an option. Would probably work out better. It would fix this issue.
And do remember to res on welcome, you will need to be a part of the USG Merchants Group. If you're not in that, I can invite you and you'll need to wear that tag to res. And the object should have the group USG Merchants. You don't need to deed it to the group, but it should have that group associated with it.
Yeah, that would work. It's a good suggestion, Wolf. All right. Any other questions?
I know we threw a lot of stuff at you today, so if you don't have questions now, but do have questions later, I will leave this stage channel open for a little bit so that you can come in here and type your question. But you'll want to make sure that, you know what, let's just skip that. I would suggest if you have a question that isn't answered now, you think about it tomorrow or something like that, think about the section, who was talking. Was it Mike, myself, or Wolf? And then I would send us a message or post something in USG Welcome.
Or one of the forums, ideally,
Yeah,
because
or the
then it
forums,
gets
right?
preserved.
That's actually a fabulous idea, and that's a wonderful way for everybody to get used to the forums. So please make sure you post in the forum, and we'll answer them.
Hi,
Hey,
this is for
Bobby.
Wolf. Wolf, have you considered using PayPal as your currency? Yeah, I was asking about, but this is about the market, and so since it's an independent thing, it's about setting up PayPal on his system and having a means to do it. And PayPal
He's
has recently been improving its ability to do a merchant web-based merchandising, and so that's something to look into.
Yeah, I considered that. Part of the problem is the tax implications, and part of it is that people are using. I'll be using PayPal as the payment portal, but actually integrating it into the marketplace and buying in US dollars basically through PayPal is kind of how Kitely works for buying stuff that you buy in from Kitely out to other hypergrid worlds. It's a little trickier for me in terms of my financial situation. Basically, I'm on disability benefits. I'm not looking to really even cover my costs on this. So I won't be looking at taking, a lot of cut out of it. But if I did, and it was done in US dollars from start to finish, that all becomes accountable. And then I have to consider complicated things like international reporting of finances and stuff. I spoke to a few sort of tax and government officials in this country because the marketplace and my servers will be based in this country. They're still on very fast networks, so nobody's going to notice a difference. But that means that all of my tax and everything is reported here. But the original idea was that people would actually just buy, would effectively charge up like a gift card with US dollars through PayPal initially, and then that would transfer through and go out to the creators, the merchants, and whatever as a reduced amount of US dollars using something like PayPal integration. The problem with doing that is that becomes much more complicated and that's basically a marketplace in custom terms, customs as in customs and excise. But the issue with that is that you've got providers and customers in countries all around the world. And if it goes as US dollars all the way through, I'm accountable for that everywhere. So I was advised by some tax people to do it as like a one-way virtual currency, so it's got no fixed exchange rate. It doesn't come up as a flagged virtual money, as a microcurrency. So I'm trying to separate the customer from the merchant.
Okay. All right, so you basically don't want to become a digital currency exchange
Yeah,
provider. Okay, got it.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
all right. Anything else? So I will point people to the forums, like I said, if you have follow-up questions. And there's a couple of things we talked about, like software releases and things, as well as the user activities. Those are good things to talk about in the forums because saving the information will help other people. If you ask something, it's very possible somebody else is wondering the same thing. So we'll all benefit from that. So anyway, I think there's a lot of good stuff coming up. And the big thing I want to say to wrap up here, we're doing, as I said, this isn't about, strictly speaking, making a bunch of money or anything else like that. For me, at least, it's an opportunity to do something and give back, give people a home that I was friends with and wanted, and want one, and that includes myself, virtual home. Callie and I met via virtual worlds so many years ago. But it's also an opportunity for me to continue to stay sharp and do my own do development work and continue to contribute like that. And that's something I can do. And we need everybody else to do your thing too. And that could be coming to events. It could be shopping. If you're a content creator, it means making stuff for the grid. And we want to do what we can do to make that your part work as well. So that's what this is all about. If you need something or you think you have an idea, we have such a great group of people here and so much creative energy. Share your ideas and let's work together and make this the place we all want it to be. So that's kind of how I want to end it. Is let's just do what we do, and we all benefit when we do that.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I know sometimes taking time out of a Sunday is difficult, but we do appreciate your being here. Bensky has recorded this and we'll post it soon for everybody to have a record of to refer back to. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.